Hello, everyone, and welcome to Stoked, the ultimate Star Trek Online podcast. My name is Chris.
My name is Jeremy.
Yo, hey there, J-Man.
Well, hi.
Hi there, everyone. We have a very special Stoked for you today. Now, we're off at Linux Fest Northwest this weekend.
As we speak.
Yeah, right
we're
now.
We're like time traveling right now.
Yeah, we're going to get a call from Temporal Mechanics. So anyways, here's what we got planned for you. Is a couple of weeks ago, it was the Star Trek Online Podcasters Summit. A bunch of, almost all of the Star Trek Online podcasters got together on one massive Skype call.
There were 14 of us on that call.
Plus a couple of Cryptic staffers got on there too. So that was great. And so we thought we would show you some of the highlight moments because we recorded the whole darn thing. And now we've got it here for you coming up. And then at the end of that, we've got a whole new community feedback segment.
Yes, we do.
The Admiral Murphy himself joins us. He's a prolific Foundry author. And we asked him, Murphy, what moments in Star Trek did you draw from to make really epic Foundry missions?
Yeah, it's kind of a continuation of last week's feedback.
Yep. So we'll feature that at the end of this week's episode. But without further ado, let's roll the Podcasters Summit.
Start out here. My intentions are, my goals are, and I brought this up about 6 months ago, is that we should really have a sit down with all the podcasts, whether it be live, recorded, or whatever. And my vision has come to fruition right now. It took a little work, but we got here, and I'm glad everybody's here joining us. And we just want to talk about Star Trek Online. Before the show starts, I do have an explicit warning anyway. So if there's an accidental slip, it's not a big deal. There is a warning for just-in-case moments.
Why do I get the feeling you're talking to me?
He said fiddle fat?
No.
What the is that about?
Mav.
Jeremy! The show hasn't even started yet.
I didn't say anything.
Can I hear you guys?
Yes.
Why
Can you hear
not?
us?
Yeah, Brandon said I wasn't showing up, though.
She's invisible.
Shows on the line here.
Yeah.
On this end.
Huh.
Let's
No,
see.
that's suitable because all women on the internet are fictional anyway.
All right.
So,
Tom
Hi.
was sadly, but we got zero.
Yeah, my microphone was
Edit? Wait a minute. You're supposed to edit podcasts? Oh.
We don't edit podcasts. We don't.
Yeah,
Editing's
the
just
better
a
ones are edited.
myth.
What's that? That's fine. That's fine. If
Chris
y'all
is
have
apparently
other recording
excited.
devices, please go ahead.
Ooh, can I do something that I've always wanted to do with like more than 3 people in a Skype call?
Oh, God.
Oh, boy. We got 2 minutes.
Okay.
2-minute warning.
All right. Attack! Sorry, I just
All right.
You couldn't resist yourself.
Could have at least said Kapla instead.
Oh, go Kapla!
Chris and I are both on the same Skype account. It's just the two of us on one mic.
I'm just here for a couple of minutes to say hi.
Oh,
Hello. Chris.
I wanted to be here, but I couldn't make it, so I just wanted to say hi.
Hey.
That's fine. That's fine.
Hey, Chris.
2 people in one mic.
Oh, God.
Indeed.
Okay.
It is.
How can you do that?
Okay. Quiet on the set. Quiet on the set. Mighty, I'm going to grab the string. Okay?
Magic.
I got to get comfortable. I need more liquor. Where's the scotch?
I got Johnny Walker right here.
I brought cognac.
Okay.
I got Snapple.
I brought Patron.
And welcome, everybody, to the first ever STO Podcasters Summit. I am your host, Kohas, and of course, but we also have with us the boys from Stoked, Chris and Jeremy. Hey, how y'all doing, guys?
That's us.
Hello, hello, gentlemen and ladies.
That's right. Welcome. Y'all can tune in to where can they see you guys at?
We're live right now over at jblive.tv.
Absolutely, and I'm just here for a bit. I'm actually in the middle of editing the last show we just shot, the Linux Action Show, but I just wanted to stop by and say holler, because I'm really excited you guys are doing this, and I just can't make it for the whole thing, so I just want to say hello.
No problem.
Hi.
You guys have a good show, all right?
And kind of a surprise to me today is Zeronius Rex. Hey, how you doing, Zeronius Rex?
Hi, just call me Zero.
Why don't we just start out and say, hey, Star Trek Online has been here a year, won many awards. What do y'all say? Has Star Trek Online met and exceeded some of y'all's expectations?
Definitely.
Yes.
That's not biased at all.
I think she's a little biased.
You know, if I could for just a second, though, Jeremy from Stoked here, I do want to say that outside of everything else that STO has done successfully, I think we all have to give it up for the Foundry. This is a milestone in the MMO industry, and they're one of the first ones to do UGC correct. And I think this means big things for the entire industry. So it in spite of everything else that some people might complain about, you can't say anything bad about the fact that the Foundry was launched. It's successful. The players love it, and we are seeing some incredible things come out of it.
It's fantastic.
I'm telling you, I'm getting flashbacks to the days of Radiant and Quake, and it really is a lot of fun to use the tool.
I think we're going to attract a lot more people who probably wouldn't necessarily be interested in MMORPGs or Star Trek Online in general, because it now has that user-generated content engine to it, where people who are like making maps and levels for Quake or what have you can now come in and say and really play developer, and not just half developer, but really make it look good, make it look professional, make it look nice with all the same assets that are actually built.
Well, I've always said that this is sort of the democratizing of MMOs. No longer do you wait for a dev to come up with a story that they think you should play. You will now get to create your own. And I think it's sort of changing the rules of MMOs.
And I think it's up to all of us to get the word out. Don't slack, guys.
That's what we do. No, actually, I know Jeremy and Brandon both. Jeremy, you write for 10 Ton Hammer, correct?
Yes, I do.
And Brandon, you write for Massively.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Y'all have really said a few things that really have piqued my interest. The Foundry is the saving grace to Star Trek Online.
Yeah.
What are some of the reviews that you guys have heard down the line?
Well, I think one of the important things to realize about the Foundry is not only is it revolutionizing MMOs to a certain extent, but it's also bringing in all of those Trekkies that want to write fan fiction. They can now write living fan fiction within the Foundry as well. So whether or not they enjoy playing the game, they now have the opportunity to create something that others can play.
But I've also even noticed that the Foundry has begun to push Star Trek Online outside of the game. Over at starbaseugc.com, there's a lot of the Foundry authors hang out there, and they're starting to post a lot of their trailers. They're now creating, using the demo record tool, creating something to post on YouTube. They're really taking their story and not just having it in the game, but pushing it outside of the game.
Kenny is from hailingfrequency.com. The psychologist has said all along that the user-generated content tool would probably be a hit. Going back to 2004, 2005, when we first started in the community, getting involved with participating in the brainstorm for Star Trek Online, those folks said the fan base has a primary need to create content. And if you leverage that, you'll do well. So it does speak well to that.
Well, I was going to say, I've heard people describe it as the final nail in Cryptic's coffin, and I just really disagree. I think it's a pretty awesome thing we've done.
Yeah.
Imagine that. Why would it be bad? Yeah. I mean, I don't understand. I could worry a little bit if you're a developer who's being paid to write stories, because now all of us are going to be writing stories. And I've often wondered if you guys have ever looked at some of the story writers in Cryptic have said, oh, I wish I thought of that.
Well, I think that there is a minority of players out there that are really actually anti-Foundry. They feel like, why am I doing Cryptic's job for them? Why am I putting in my effort to make something? Plus, they're also the ones that frequently I find have been burned by bad missions. And I think a lot of us have. But if you're already leaning towards anti-Foundry, and then the first mission you play is something that's barely worthy of a 1-star, you're bound to have a bad taste in your mouth about that. And the other potential negative of it is, just as you guys have hinted at before, if the players are making missions that are worthy of being professionally created, like as if it's better or as good as Cryptic's stuff, then why are they paying devs? Now, I think that we've already seen enough arguments against that, but there are those out there that are looking at those negatives and unfortunately dwelling on them.
Well, piggybacking off what Jeremy said about people saying that, they should be paid for doing it, or, they're making their own missions, they're paying a fee to play the game and basically make their own content. Well, that's what a few Massively players have been saying, and in one of my columns kind of doing a rebuttal towards it and saying is, you're paying to play the game, but you're paying to be able to have the tools to be creative, to be able to put those stories that you've been talking about out there for everyone to play. So while, yes, you're actually creating content and episodes for people to play to level up, a lot of people aren't seeing it as that. They're seeing it as a way to express their own creativity and actually be able to live, basically their Star Trek dream.
I can understand why there would be concern about it from the get-go before the Foundry actually came out, but I think this is possibly the best way you could ever have wished to have implemented it into the Foundry. And there's going to be way more pros than cons when it comes to actually executing all the missions and on all the additional content.
You look at the way the internet is, the way technology is, things like Google SketchUp. No one accuses Google of having us do their work by creating three-dimensional models that you share with the community. I think it's really, changing the dynamic so that it allows us to create and make the world and not just be accepting of it.
I think we underestimate just what Cryptic has done here. They have basically created the Wikipedia for the legacy of Star Trek, where we can come together and
That's a good way of putting it.
Add to that universe.
Now, I wanted to ask Zero, while you're here, has the Foundry, before we continue on here, has the Foundry taken off like Cryptic wanted it to? Has it exceeded or met expectations?
I think it's still early to tell right now. I mean, it's been out not that long a time. I know I'm pretty pleased with what I've seen. I've played some really fun missions. We're always amazed with how creative people can be with them.
Yeah, I just wanted to echo what Zero was saying about that creativity. I think the most exciting thing for the Foundry for me is what we haven't seen, what we haven't thought about. The possibilities are limitless, really, on what we might see in the future that we haven't even considered yet or seen yet.
I've literally spent 2 weeks doing one mission. I mean, it's such an immersive little tool. I couldn't be actually happy with it. Someone said in our chat, because they listened to this, they can't believe people are actually complaining about an MMO being truly creative and letting us do what we want to do.
Yeah.
I definitely log in every day and try to get through a Foundry mission or two. So when there's not a lot to do at level 51, there's always Foundry to go fool around with if you're bored.
Oh, yeah.
That actually segues directly into my statement, if you guys don't mind, talking about Endgame and the Foundry's place in that. If you guys are done talking about the Foundry, I don't want to cut anybody off, but I'm really curious about some of your guys' ideas for other things, that because like I said, not everybody loves the Foundry. Are there other features that us as podcasters have brainstormed over the weeks and months since launch that we need to see in an end game situation?
Oh yeah.
Oh, I got a good one, but I'll wait till later.
As far as STFs go, I'm not sure about everyone here, but I know Mark and Andrew can definitely attest to. Oh, and Andrew, DJ Drew, is now on the call with us. Hi, DJ Drew.
Hey, DJ.
Hello.
They can definitely attest that I am the STF king. I've probably run infected over 120 times, and all the others a whole bunch of dozens of times. I think what it comes down to for me is the leadership of it, the strategy, always trying to beat my own time, and things like that. And what I would love to see as far as endgame goes with the Foundry is being able to use tools to create puzzles, to create timers and things like that. Because the big thing for everyone right now is they want people who are into FTS want more of them, and unfortunately, that is not the majority of players' thing. Not everyone is playing STF, so therefore, it's understandable Cryptic is spending more time on things like featured episodes in the Foundry.
I actually had a follow-up for Brandon, since you've done these STFs so many dang times. I think you've more than 10-tupled my number of runs on Infected. I was just curious, how do you feel about the risk versus reward? Now, you put it across as being a kind of a personal challenge, that you're trying to beat your best times, get new friends through it, and all that kind of stuff. But on a grander scale, do you feel that the risk versus reward investment of the Special Task Forces is good as it is, or do you have any maybe ideas to improve it?
Well, with Infected, you can get it done in about, my best time is 43 minutes. So 43 minutes for 5 emblems is pretty decent. You think about how long it takes you to do the different dailies and things like that, and it's probably on par. And so it's not too bad. As far as, when things like the Cure or Kidam records that are taking, a lot longer, I think more emblems right there would be better, or some kind of more reward for that. But as far as it goes right now, I think I'm not playing them for the reward.
Well, and there's also the fact that once you have a certain amount of emblems, you're kind of done, aren't you?
Pretty much, yeah. I mean, there's nothing that special in there that you can't get other means. So maybe some more special items in there. You know, you can keep grinding emblems to get C-store ships, or you can, you know, just buy it out with money. So seeing some truly unique things that you can only get by completing the STFs would be nice. You know, a better reward, I agree.
In the STFs, I've always, with the different fleets I've run with, I've always regarded, or they've always regarded, rather, STFs as basically STO hardcore mode. Those are the missions that are made to test your mettle. You know, to separate the captains from the ensigns.
Right. Well, the Zero can correct me on this, but I'm pretty certain one of the issues of people who want more STFs is that STFs are kind of like one of the hardest things you can really develop for, mainly because once you make them, they bug out like crazy, and you have to spend all that time finding and fixing the bugs. Am I right on that, Zero?
Definitely. They're one of the hardest things to test. If we can beat them, we think that you guys may stand a chance.
You're so much better. You're so much better than us. You're on this like tier of godliness that we cannot.
Come on.
Because we know that with PvE content, we play them a lot. So we have to make sure that we can at least get through them once, and then we figure that at least generally the average player can get through them if we can, because we don't often team up actually. So we are kind of like a pug.
Really? That's pretty cool. Well, but also another thing with that is that STFs are mainly designed for players like Mundane said, players that who see this as the ultimate challenge. But that's so much of in-game, and there's so few people who really want to pursue that ultimate challenge. Star Trek Online is mainly a game for casual gamers. And so what I like to probably see from in-games, out of in-game at least, is content that may not be quite so hard. And so they can, because most of them sit back right now and go, well, there's nothing for me to do because I can't do an STF, or I don't like the Foundry for whatever reason. And if we could have more content in that direction, I think a lot of complaints would be solved from a lot of people.
Well, I was going to say, the one thing about the STFs, I've only done them a couple of times, and the few times I did them, I pugged them, and those were disasters. And other times, I flew through them with a fleet person who knew how to do them. It sort of relates almost to this thing about the pugs, and is Star Trek Online a solo game or is it a group game? And it's sort of, I've been playing a lot of Foundry missions which are very different from what you were talking about, Mab, that are designed for single people. And when you do play them with somebody else, it gets a little askewed. And it almost to me is like the STFs are rewarding the most social players, the ones who can work together as a team, but yet we're not seeing this in a lot of other areas. I mean, if you were to say what I would like to see more in Endgame or just in STO in general at different levels is something that is a more social aspect that can take that component to other parts, like crafting, like the Foundry, like PvP. And I think that's why people get turned off to the STFs, because they're just not used to being social throughout their career in the game.
And that's a shame. That really is a shame, because this is an MMO. It is you've got to, everybody. This is not only just a social game, but it is Star Trek, and a lot of these folks here are big Star Trek fans.
We're going to be integrating Viva, or not we. Sorry, my bad, Zero. They are going to be integrating Vivox voice chat and a territory control game.
Well, going back to the idea of special task forces and risk versus reward, I wanted to mention two different, there was a bit of a conversation going on in my chat room about the two different sides of it. From a very casual player's standpoint, they don't want to, because PvP is such a big part of this game, they don't want to see too much Uber gear offered as high-end rewards for special task forces, because they'll get completely squashed in PvP if they don't run that same content, even if they don't want to. On the other side, is the same people that that do run those special task forces on a regular basis and want good rewards to make it worth their time. I really just wanted to point out the two sides of this argument so that everybody doing these and talking about them on a regular basis can kind of understand that there's a full spectrum of attitudes on these things, and even if they're not content for everybody, they still have an impact on everybody, whereas the Foundry doesn't.
What do we think Vivox is going to bring to the game? Is it going to increase the pug groups, and it's going to make it easier for pug groups to get through rather than being, just fleets only? So what do you all think that's going to bring?
Well, maybe I'm a total naysayer on this, but I was around when World of Warcraft launched their in-game chat system, which is a ghost town now. It was a ghost town within weeks of being launched.
Really?
Yeah, I just want to, there's another side to this, which is people that are established in a guild, they already have Ventrello or TeamSpeak or Skype or whatever they use to keep in touch with each other. And if they bring in a pugger, they're going to force that person to either, follow them, or they're just not going to use Vivox, because the two are not likely to work hand in hand together. Now, that being said, even though I'm kind of poo-pooing on that, I do love the idea of in-game voice chat, and I think that it has potential to encourage people to be more social with strangers. I'm hoping, I don't know if you guys have looked at Vivox, but it has the potential of allowing for ambient voice chat. I don't know if they're putting that actual feature. I haven't looked too closely. But the Vivox functionality can allow for ambient, and I would love to see that enabled in social zones, places like Ryza or STOked.
I think this conversation would be better had after you know what the Vivox features will be for our game.
Yeah, I know.
That's a nice way of saying it.
Yeah. Because it's still early days for us. I mean, it just came into test last week, and we'll be looking at it again this coming week, but even still, I don't know what the full set of features will be.
Because it's like, don't speculate. Well, now I put the X down because I wanted to speculate.
Right. We have a room full of people who speculate about the game week upon week.
Here.
Yeah.
Speculate all you want. I'm saying,
we who hold events in game and parties, we can talk to our listeners now. We can call people over. There can be all kinds of different things for role players who do their missions in game, for people who want to call pugs and et cetera.
As far as you're hearing somebody walking through Earth space dock, and they could be whistling or now this is what they did at APB, because when somebody's driving by in their car, you heard their husband and wife arguing. And that was one of the main reasons why it turned me off from APB, because you hear somebody bitching and complaining from somebody else in their office or room or whatever.
Kohaas,
and yes.
Have you stood on a city street and heard the traffic pass by? You'd hear that anyway.
I know that, but
that's why I go online, so I don't have to hear it.
I just want to. So, I mean, now that we've gotten the Foundry talked about, we've got STFs. Anybody else got something else they want to bring up?
PvP.
Oh boy.
Yes.
Let's talk persistence.
Yeah.
Oh yes.
All right, Jeremy, you go for it. Start.
Well, it was hinted at a little earlier. I think it was Mundane talking about the idea of a persistent PvP fleet action that could potentially unlock additional features or content or a border war and things like that. Yes, first of all, I'm not a big PvPer, but if there's a purpose for it, totally on board. Additionally, I'm wondering if anybody out there has, like I said, I'm not a big PvPer, so do you have any just generic commentary on the current state of this arena-based system that they have now?
Andrew's a big PvPer and PvPs every night. I'd be interested to hear what he says.
Actually, I'm actually looking forward to what they was saying inside the Ask Cryptics and the engineering report. Stuff about actually having using your shuttles in PvP, going back to the vault. I think this would be very interesting, and I can't wait for stuff like that to be implemented.
I really like this system as is, but I would like to see more maps. But I know it's coming down the line.
PvP is pretty much all I do in game. That's my sole reason for playing MMOs. So when you get Star Trek and PvP in one game, that's heaven. There needs to be changes the way PvP is now, because it's great. We got the challenge system, and you can kind of mix and match teams, especially cross-faction. That's great. But one thing that I would love to see, and I think it was on STOked last week with interview with Dan, or maybe the week before, and he was talking about how Klingons are going to be opened up to every sector of the world map. Mm-hmm. How awesome would it be if you're just flying through some random sector like, I don't know, Solar System, and a Klingon player is just cruising by to his destination. You fly over and initiate combat.
As long as there was also a flag system included in that, I'd be on board. But I don't like the idea of non-consensual.
Non-consensual PvP. Well, there is something. Here's my question. There's something very similar to it, which is very cool in Champions Online, where you can challenge somebody. And what's neat about it is you could see them duking it out right in front of you. I mean, it would be great if Drazana Station, you could just instigate a bar fight randomly, or in the second
epic.
If you could watch a bunch of ships duking it out. I mean, right now the PvP is kind of secluded. You go off into this arena and you don't see people doing it. But there's something more to the challenge or the humiliation of being trounced in front of everybody else or your other fleet mates. And I'd love to see that. I'd love to see a more unique versions of PvP. Like I know they were talking a little bit about capture the flag or hitting zones or something that would
racing.
That would level
or destroying objectives.
Right. Something that would level the field for the people who are just the min-maxers who have got their ships just totally tricked out versus someone who is clever or creative or unique in the way that they fight. I'd like to see those things rewarded.
So I don't know if you guys heard it yet, but on this week's Priority 1, we had Salami Inferno on, and it will be up on the Trek website next week. And one thing he talked about is that he is a proponent for capture and hold PvP, and we were kind of talking about the last map from Cloaked Intentions, the city map being a capture the flag scenario. So he's definitely on board with that, and he said he's carrying the flag for us to make that happen.
Jeremy, you wanted to bring up something?
Yes, I did, and I have to try and remember what it was. Oh, no, I wanted to talk about, somebody was mentioning like capture and hold or capture the flag as possible, like in PvP scenarios. I wanted to talk a little bit about another game that's out there that's heavy PvP, which is DC Universe. And one of the things that they do to encourage open PvP in a PvE-driven world, they have both factions going about doing objectives in the same spot that aren't necessarily the same thing. Let me give you a firm example is if they got cops fighting villains, well, they'll have the bad guys trying to save the villains while the good guys try to save the cops. Now, even though those players aren't necessarily flagged for PvP, they're in direct opposition to one another because they can kill each other's quest NPCs. So there's 1,000 other possibilities out there when you don't even factor into the idea that you have to go up against somebody's direct energy modulation beam fire at will. You can avoid the balance situations of player versus player by incorporating objective-based PvP zones.
One of the things that I'm kind of interested in, and I want to hear what you guys are, speculation or non-speculation, maybe even Zero can say something that she may have heard in Cryptic Studios, the duty officer system. And I said duty.
You said duty.
So said duty.
Okay, wait, I think we got to stop this. I think, we got to stop the duty thing. You got Dan to say it. The executive producer of the game said, quote, I said duty. We've got to stop that, right? I think we all have to
that rules.
More mature.
It is our duty as Starfleet officers.
I think it's more of our duty to stop the term duty more than that, honestly. I mean,
that's the difference between the crew duty and the captain, because he has the captain's log.
Duty.
Oh,
God.
All right.
Anyway, yeah,
I had to do it.
Boy.
Now that we got that out of our systems.
We went there.
Yes, we did.
Now that it's out of your system, don't forget to wipe.
Oh,
Which shell is it?
God, how are we supposed to...
Okay, gentlemen, there's a lady present.
That's right. We have with us Thomas Marone, or we all know him better as Thomas the Cryptic Hack. Welcome.
Hey, thanks, guys.
Hey, Thomas, how you doing?
Good.
Welcome aboard. I actually just want to know, there has been a lot of talk about the duty officers that it's more like going to be like a customizable card game where you collect them, you can share them, you can acquire different missions at different spots. Now, what I would like to know, am I taking the term the customizable card game literally, or will you be able to pick up, say, Special Rare Bob and actually change his name and change his appearance? Yeah, the bridge off the interview of the stall from STOked. I think Jeremy can explain that a little bit better.
Actually, I'm hoping that Thomas could, since he's here.
Yeah, Thomas or Zero, y'all please step in. Step up to the mic, kids, y'all.
As far as my understanding, I think Heretic, he's one of our devs who's the major designer on the duty officer system. He said in the forums that if you have a like rare Bajoran ensign stellar cartography duty officer, all of those duty officers with the exact same stats, species, gender, rarity, rank, and abilities. Due to storage constraints, all of those that would have the matching stats are going to have the same name. So because they're going to be, thousands of these guys, they all have to kind of be confined in that way.
Oh, I don't have a question. I'm just really excited that actually by the fact that we can't customize them, because I think it actually helps the concept of a trading card if it's kind of built in.
But it also sounds like a nice way, another level of customization. I mean, I from what I've heard, it sounds like if you wanted to be less combat oriented, more scientific, you could have a bunch of duty officers who could help you in getting anomalies and stuff. So it sounds to me.
Did you say they can help you get an omelet?
Give a sort of almost a little bit of. No, I'm sorry, anomalies. I didn't mean it. Though you could have chef. I mean, chef would be an interesting duty officer, so that your crew is a little bit more well-fed and they perform a little better. Don't know if that's on the list. But I like the fact that it adds a little bit, not so much to the mechanics, but a little bit also to a little bit of the RP or story of the game. If you wanted to be more scientific or more diplomatic, you don't necessarily have to min-max for the best DPI. You could min-max for the best diplomacy skills, or the best omelet for that matter.
So if you're curious about the system, actually a lot has been shared on the forums, again, by Heretic. If you just go to the forums and search for user Heretic and just read all of his posts, he's actually answered a lot of these questions pretty specifically. So one of the things that he said was that civilian duty officers, you wouldn't be able to slot them in your active roster to get passive buffs on your space skills, but that they would be very useful for certain assignments that come up that you need to send your duty officers on. So, for example, you couldn't necessarily have your chef make a award-winning raton stew that makes everybody man their stations a bit more livelier, but maybe there's a diplomatic function that you need to send. You have to host a diplomatic dinner, and so having a chef on board makes that go a bit more smoothly.
Oh, nice.
Zero, y'all want to interject on that one?
I just recommend reading what Heretic has written on the forums about it.
I wanted to bring up the idea that, some people have asked about the customization of your duty officers. I think that it's a good idea at this point to think of them more like equipment. They're not so much people on your ship because you will never directly interact with them. They're more like extra buffs, extra sets of equipment. And as far as customization goes, somebody in my chat room put it really well. Nobody wants to name their phaser array Mark 11.
And you shouldn't get attached to them at all. I mean, they're made to be traded and to send off and to die.
No, I'm going to interject here. I want to interject here. I totally disagree on that. I think I hope that you will be able to name your duty officers. I think that what's needed is to have the crew. I think this adds more to the crew, but I'd love to see more love to the boss, to have them be a part of the story. We've seen a lot of Foundry missions where people are doing things as a part of your crew. Stories are being generated from them. I would love to be able to see your bridge officers who stay with you grow. You get some more synergy from that. I mean, for the story-wise, I think that these characters that you're surrounding yourself need to grow stronger in some way. Well, missions that revolve around them or something like that.
I agree with you on the subject of boffs, as far as like the people that follow you away missions and they people your bridge and things like that. But if you think about it in terms of a Trek episode, you very rarely met anybody that was of any importance that wasn't a regular on the bridge. Even some of the regulars on the bridge, you didn't know their names.
I'm going to interject and disagree with you on that. We've seen some great characters. Ensign Barkley was some guy down in the engine room, and he became a very powerful character. And Transport Chief O'Brien. O'Brien actually is that actor is the second most actor who's appeared in the most number of Star Trek.
Absolutely.
So I disagree with a minor character becoming a major one. I'd love to be able to see it that you could promote your doffs to boffs at some point, and maybe your boff to a captain at some point. No, I think story arcs and the personalities of these pieces of equipment should be expanded more.
Really, I just think that maybe the system is not completely understood. They may be part of your crew, but that's the unnamed crew that you have a bar underneath your starship's hull health, not as in your active bridge officers on your ship. They're not people.
Now, you'll also look at Benjamin Sisko during the war. He remembers every name that's come across his desk that he commanded in battle and died.
But Cisco didn't get to name the people who died on his desk.
Oh, no, that would kind of be morbid, right? Hey, Mr. Ricky, you're going to die today. Good luck.
I want to ask a question to everybody from all the podcasters. Dan has said in a couple interviews so far that the staff at Cryptic is a very, very small company. And one of the things what I think is good about a small company is offers flexibility, easy to move, easy to react to things. I've never played any other MMOs. So I'm wondering, is it good to be a part of a community or work in a group where the lead company is a smaller staffed group, or is it better to be a part of something where there's much more resources? Is it are there pros and cons?
Yeah.
I'd like to answer this.
Yeah, go for it. Oh.
I think there are good parts and bad parts of that. I, from a player standpoint, love it. The very first MMO I played, I believe the team size was 5, something like that. 2 programmers, 3 programmers, and an artist. And it was fantastic. You had this connection with the gods, as we called them. So Cryptic's team is larger than that. We have more people working on STO. And I also think it's fantastic that we're able to have this kind of relationship with our players that bigger companies might not have. On the other side of that, you have people who they seem to get a little more upset with you because they do feel like they know you. So that's the downside from the dev point of view.
Jeremy, you wanted to bring up something for Thomas?
Since he's a relatively recent hire to the crew, I was wondering what his initial impressions were of joining the staff there at Cryptic. I mean, when you first came on, was it surprising, the size of the team? Was it exactly what you expected? Just give us your kind of first impressions of joining Cryptic.
Man, I thought these guys are all jerks.
You're fired.
I'm also actually curious, Thomas, before you get started, is this your first game company that you worked for?
Yes, this is so actually what's funny is this is the second employer, like full-time employer I've had. I had 2 jobs at my previous, so previously I worked at Southeast Missouri State University as the webmaster there. So I'm going from a not-for-profit state institution, a university, to a game company in California. So it's a very different environment, very different culture. I love it at Cryptic. And I liked it a lot at the university too. I worked with really great people there, but it's night and day in certain things. Dress is certainly one of those things. you can't wear khaki, cargo shorts when you work for the state institution. Man, everybody at Cryptic has been really great, and actually, I'm going to say that Zero she was really nice. She actually came and found me after, I think it was the Friday after I started working there. She came up into the web room and was like, "Hey, are you Thomas the Cat?" And I'm like, "Yeah." She's like, "You want to go out for a drink with a bunch of people from Cryptic?" And I was like, "Yeah." And that was really cool. I felt really welcome because, I mean, I just moved. It's 2,000 miles from Missouri to California, so that made a big impact on me, and I really appreciate it still. But it is interesting. In some areas, you kind of get to see how the sausage is made. But I do. Everybody does work really hard at Cryptic, and I really enjoyed working in the web room too. It's been interesting to see the relationship between the developer and the publisher, because I'm kind of at the knife's edge there, dealing with websites. We do a lot of work for Atari as well as Cryptic, so we have a lot of requests for doing website work for Atari games, and not just Champions and STO. I guess I didn't really come in with too many notions about what it would be like, because my personal philosophy is to not really set your expectations at any particular level, just so you're not, disappointed, I guess. Disappointed is not the right word, but you just got to keep an open mind. And so I wasn't like expecting everybody to, work at gold-plated desks and, just drinking
Patron.
Like that they bought with Atari tokens or whatever.
Do you lose interns regularly, and are they required to wear red shirts?
I can neither confirm nor deny.
I just wanted to mention about the sense of family, the feeling of family you get when you go there. And, luckily I've had the amazing opportunity to visit with both of them up there. And I instantly, when we went out to lunch, and I'd only been there maybe 20 minutes, instantly felt connected to them. And they've just got a really, really good team. And like you're all saying, yes, it's small, but the amount of work they do and push out, the tireless nights, I'm sure. I don't know why some of them just don't have cots there to sleep. These are all real people that are on the other side, and I think a lot of people don't realize that they're actually humans that are making this game just like us, and fans of the Trek franchise, or at least video games or MMOs and things like that.
What I've noticed being relatively new to MMOs and also to podcasters, we're sort of the youngest of all the podcasters, is that what's very important to an MMO is the community and the community involvement. And my question for the Cryptic guys is, what's it been like working with the community, and also for the other podcasters? I know that at Starbase Foundry, Podcast UGC, we work a lot with Starbase UGC, and they have a very strong chat room. There are people constantly in there. They're very passionate, exchanging information, ideas, and there's a lot of posting going on, a lot of work being put into this aspect of it. I've seen people really go above and beyond. I'm curious to see what the other podcasters have felt about the communities that gravitate towards them, and just in the STO community in general compared to other games they may have worked on.
But Can I talk about the community?
Sure.
I just wanted to say, I don't know how well I'd be able to do my job without the help of all of the players, because we test as much as we can, but we will never spend as many hours in the game as collectively all of you wonderful players. And so everyone has been such a huge help, which I know anytime I'm on air, but it's really given me, it's made me really tied to the project.
Since we're running short on time here, I'd actually really, if you don't mind, I'd like to hear Thomas's input on his thoughts on the community. Actually, before he does, I do want to point out that we, the community, played a big part in helping Thomas get his current position, and that's probably what he wants to talk about. So,
you owe us, buddy. That better be what he wants to talk about. No.
Oh God.
Okay, well, no, I was going to completely snub you, and that's exactly what I was going to talk about. Big props to STOked, and there was another Star Trek Online podcast that isn't around for a while that also, featured my minigame ideas on there. I think it was called STOcast. I don't think they're making any more episodes, but I'm pretty sure STOked was the thing that got the developers' attention, and so it's awesome that we have a community that's just, we're not afraid of featuring each other's ideas. And I mean, this, how many games have something like this, guys, where like, okay, all these podcasters get together because they love the game so much, and it's not, you're not trying to isolate people to your own, we just want people to listen to Jupiter Broadcasting, or we just want people to go to Starbase UGC. It's just such a great effort of sharing and collaboration, and I think that's one of the great things about Star Trek fans is we're so creative and we're so involved, and we're just so passionate about everything that we do. And STO is a great, one of the great things about it, one of the greatest things about the game, I think, is the community that's grown up around it, and I just hope that continues to get more awesome. So it's fantastic, and we just got to keep going at warp speed.
Also, I don't think the community would be what the community is if the devs didn't listen to it. There's I'm getting spoiled, honestly. I'm having trouble with other things outside of the Cryptic universe, and I go to their forums and I complain. I expect whoever's in charge to hear me now, because Cryptic does that sort of thing when they have their own forums.
If a nerd rages on the forums and the devs don't hear him, did he really rage?
Yes.
Oh,
Yes.
Yes, because Stormshade shut his thread.
Before we cut the 2-hour mark here, because some of us have to run, I just want to say thanks everybody for joining us, and we're going to continue to do more of these STO Podcasters Summit. Thank you for each and every one of you for showing up and putting up with all of us. Hopefully we can do this again before Season 5 hits, or anytime if somebody wants to start the show. Hell, let's make it happen. But thanks again, and we'll see you all back here for the next Podcaster Summit.
With a deep judge. And welcome to Community Feedback. We hope you enjoyed the highlights from the STO Podcasters Summit.
We sure did.
Yeah, we did. We thought we'd wrap up this episode with another little community feedback moment.
Now, last week we asked, and we had a bunch of people on our video wall to share with us some of the Trek moments that they would love to see inspire Foundry missions.
Yeah.
So this week we're going to be doing something a little bit different. We're bringing back Admiral Murphy, who you guys know is a kind of a prolific Foundry author, to actually talk about some of the moments that did inspire Deep Space 11.
Welcome to the show, Murphy.
Hey.
And now, why don't we get started with? Why don't you pick your most prominent moment of inspiration and tell us which Foundry mission it was and why it worked for you.
Well, I think this isn't really a moment, but I think overall Deep Space Nine has been huge, and it just changed Star Trek for me completely. And that was my inspiration to creating another universe similar to that, which centered around Deep Space 11.
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't want it to be somewhere else in the galaxy, just because in case they ever did come out with another Star Trek, because this was before Star Trek 11, I wanted that canon not to affect mine. So I decided to have it go into another galaxy where I could have free realm and whatever I wanted to create there. So Deep Space Nine has a lot of inspiration for me when I began writing my Star Trek fan fiction.
Just like they had the entire Gamma Quadrant to play with the wormhole, now you've got your own whole galaxy to play with.
Yeah, it really is. That really is true, huh? That's probably the whole reason they made the Gamma Quadrant to begin with, and put Voyager in the Delta Quadrant. I know that's true.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. And I did a little bit of adding some more to the Gamma Quadrant. Like I created a species called the Cetarians who were out to get Deep Space 11 because they wanted that wormhole. And
tell me, your Jem'Hadar Alliance series, which is the one that's currently been published, there is an episode where there's a Jem'Hadar that has naturally weaned himself off of the Ketracel White, which is a major plot point in your series. Did you take inspiration directly from that to create your whole...
I did once I saw the episode. I hadn't really exactly seen that episode yet. So it's kind of funny when I saw that. I was like, man, this is exactly what I wanted.
That's too funny.
I started writing all about freeing the Jem'Hadar because I wanted a Jem'Hadar as my commanding officer. And eventually I had him leave the ship to go free his fellow members of the species.
Which is that's the plot line that we play through in your Foundry missions.
Originally, I wrote a whole series called Star Trek Atlantica, and most of the time Tolan shows up. He is, at that time, trying to free the Jem'Hadar, and the Dominion's getting hostile at that time, and I took most of what I could and put that into my Foundry missions, so it would fit the STO universe and the Star Trek universe everybody knows.
I think that's exactly the same route I would take.
You know, and it's real easy to see how you can adapt something from established Star Trek canon into something completely different and still draw so much inspiration from it.
Really true. Really true. Good point. Murphy, any other points you want to touch on before we wrap up community feedback?
Yeah, after I did see those 2 episodes, I did do a little modifying to my story.
Did you?
Also, yeah, I was like, oh, cool. So I saw those 2. Those were Hippocratic Oath and To the Death. Those were the 2 episodes that involved the Jem'Hadar rebelling.
Yeah.
Also, in my first episode of the Jem'Hadar Alliance, I took a little bit of inspiration from the TNG episode with Scotty, where he survived using the transporter pattern buffer.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember.
So in the first episode, Tolan uses that same technique to hide from the Dominion that are searching for him.
I loved that part because of that. And, and as a Star Trek fan, when you use those moments of inspiration, those are moments that I enjoy the most when I'm playing through it. Yeah. Well, that's awesome. Great point.
The only one I can come up with right now. Other ones kind of have a little bit of a Star Trek feel to it. But that was the one that, when I created that moment, I thought of that episode.
All right. Well, great, Murphy. Thanks for calling in. And now we will be back with a regular episode next Tuesday over at JupiterBroadcasting.com. And we will be live. And we've got an epic plan, too. And it's one you're going to want to tune in for. So go over to jblive.tv at 11 a.m. Pacific on Saturday. And join us. And I think that's, boy, I might be getting this wrong, but I think that's 6 p.m. UTC. Trying to do the quick math there for you. Yeah, I don't know. All right, everyone. Well, thanks so much for tuning into this week's episode of Stoked. And we'll see you next Tuesday.
Star Trek Online started on February 2nd, 2010. Millions of people from around the world picked up phasers and for the first time in Star Trek history were thrown in a galaxy solely based on the Star Trek universe. Millions played, hundreds reviewed. Only a handful decided to take it upon themselves and report all things Star Trek Online. Now, for the first time in Star Trek Online history, all of the big game players show up for a massively epic day of STO discussion. Stoked, the Red Shirt Army, Priority 1, Podcast UGC, and Hailing Frequency. They're all gonna meet under one banner to have the biggest get-together this side of the Alpha Quadrant. The Star Trek Online Podcasters Summit, the 17th of April, 2011. This Sunday, we boldly go where no podcast has gone before. Space. The final frontier. These are the voyages of the Red Shirt Army podcast. Its continuing mission to report on all things Star Trek Online, to seek out pew-pews and QQs, to boldly wear pants when no man wore pants before.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Stoked.
Now establishing data link. Awaiting input. Command codes verified. Priority 1 message from Starfleet coming in on secure channel.